Tonight, the world says farewell to Pope Francis in a historic funeral service. Cardinals and dignitaries from around the world pay tribute in St. Peter's Square as hundreds of thousands line the streets of Rome to say goodbye to the people's pope. The focus now shifts to the selection of his successor. A high-stakes meeting between President Trump and President Zelenskyy at the Vatican, the latest on their face-to-face conversation and the push to end the war in Ukraine. Protests in Wisconsin after a local judge is arrested by the FBI. Plus new information about a 2-year-old girl, a U.S. citizen, who a judge says was deported by ICE. Breaking news out of Iran. A massive, deadly explosion devastates a key shipping port. Questions tonight about what caused it amid nuclear talks with the United States. Homes destroyed in Texas, hail pummels parts of Oklahoma, and heavy rains triggering flooding. The severe weather threat we're tracking tonight. Fighting back against explicit deep fakes.
It looked completely real.
One teen's nightmare that inspired the push for a law to ban them. And there is good news tonight about the heart-to-heart connection between this woman and young girl.
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the massive turnout for the funeral for Pope Francis. Cardinals and church officials on hand for the Mass outside St. Peter's Basilica to honor the late pontiff. Thousands of guests were in attendance as well, filling the enormous square for the historic event. And then, in a sharp change from recent papal funerals, his casket was led in a procession through the streets of Rome. Hundreds of thousands along the route, straining for that one last glimpse. Ann Thompson begins our coverage.
In a service grand and surprisingly personal, today the world said goodbye to Pope Francis. A simple wooden coffin for the man who wanted to be remembered as a pastor. 250,000 people jammed St. Peter's Square and its surrounding streets. Most never met him, including Father Jim Loughran, one of hundreds of priests celebrating the funeral mass.
Francis was an example to me of gentleness, kindness, invitation, hospitality. He was an example to me of a good shepherd.
The powerful were there too. President Donald Trump, former President Joe Biden, Prince William. The only world leader to get applause, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. In an unusually personal homily, the Dean of the College of Cardinals, Giovanni Battista Re, praised Francis' vision that the church should be a home for all, reaching out to those society shunned, including refugees. Mere feet from President Trump, Battista Re quoted Francis' plea to build bridges, not walls. Messages that resonate with Luke Parlow and Brett Rotz, studying to be priests in Rome. Luke distributed communion at the Mass.
Pope Francis' message of being able to say, I know you're trying. God is a God of mercy. So if you fall, I can help you. The church helps you.
Brett remembered the Pope's advice on living in Rome.
He told us that Rome is like a really good bottle of whiskey. You should enjoy it, but not to have too much.
It was through Rome Francis traveled one last time in his electric Pope-mobile, a procession of faith cheered by 150,000 people to his beloved Basilica Santa Maria Maggiore, where he was laid to rest.
Questa preghiera de voi su di me.
12 years ago, Pope Francis asked the world to pray for him. Today, the world asked him to pray for them.
And Ann Thompson joins us from Rome. And how soon will people be able to begin visiting the Pope's tomb?
Jose, starting tomorrow, people will be able to pay their respects at the tomb of Pope Francis. And later in the afternoon, the cardinals are going to gather at the site to pray a rosary. Jose?
Ann Thompson at the Vatican, thank you. And as Ann mentioned, after that Mass in St. Peter's Square, a rare opportunity for the faithful to witness something the world hasn't seen in 100 years, a papal funeral procession through the streets of Rome. Molly Hunter has more.
As the hearse came into view, seminary student Rodrigo Herrera teared up. I just saw him last week giving his last effort, his last pull, just giving it all for the church. And now I got to say goodbye at a coffin.
As we watched, the crowds calmed, taking it in together. Most silent, holding up their phones, a future record of their presence here too, bearing witness to Francis's final journey.
Feels like a sense of wonder too, right? That
we're witnessing this.
Yeah, that we're on the world stage, and the sense of awe of someone who had such impact.
But now the church must grapple with its post-Francis future.
I think it's a pretty solemn day for us. Sad, but hopeful as the procession goes by that the next person that takes over, the next pope, will continue some of the same messages.
This group of Catholic students studying abroad in Rome hope the next pope continues to bring in their generation the way Francis did.
Pope Francis was such a good example of being welcoming and really honing in on community in the Catholic Church.
The conclave to choose the next leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics may begin as soon as May 6th. But this year's electorate is the biggest, most diverse in history. And for much of the next week, the 135 cardinal electors will get to know each other before they're sealed inside the Sistine Chapel, secretly voting twice a day until one name, one man receives a 2/3 majority and white smoke announces a new pope has been chosen. Molly Hunter, NBC News, Rome.
Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the Pope's funeral, a meeting between President Trump and Ukraine's President Zelenskyy. The face-to-face meeting comes as high-stakes talks to end Russia's war on Ukraine ramp up. Aaron Gilchrist reports.
With world leaders gathering for the papal funeral at the Vatican, a peace summit of sorts for President Trump and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The two leaders face-to-face, seated inches apart inside St. Peter's Basilica for a 15-minute one-on-one about Ukraine's war with Russia. The White House calling it a very productive discussion. Zelenskyy later saying,
"Productive meeting. I don't want to go to a lot of details."
And on social media, laying out his priorities from that meeting, protecting lives of our people, full and unconditional ceasefire, and reliable and lasting peace, adding that the meeting has the potential to become historic.
No position can dictate.
A far cry from their last historic meeting in the Oval Office back in February.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right.
The new tone comes just days after a Russian missile and drone assault on Kyiv. President Trump condemning the strikes that left at least a dozen people dead before sounding an optimistic tone about a Friday meeting between his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Russia's Vladimir Putin.
I think we're pretty close. No deadline. I just want to do it as fast as possible.
Trump then following up that comment while flying home from Rome today with skepticism, posting, "There was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas," and adding, "It makes me think that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war."
Aaron Gilchrist is in New Jersey, where the president landed just a few hours ago. Aaron, has President Trump said what he'll do if, in fact, Putin does not want to stop the war?
Well, the president also said in that post, Jose, that he may have to deal with Putin differently, suggesting that he may turn to more financial sanctions as a consequence for continued strikes in Ukraine. Jose?
Aaron Gilchrist, thank you. And be sure to tune in to Meet the Press tomorrow morning. Kristen Welker will speak exclusively with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and with Senator Bernie Sanders. There were protests tonight over the arrest of a judge by the FBI in Wisconsin. But her arrest is also raising questions about her role in allegedly helping an undocumented migrant who had just appeared in her courtroom avoid arrest. Adrian Broaddus is there.
Drop the charges, stop the raids, stop the deportations.
Tonight, protests outside a Wisconsin FBI field office in support of a Milwaukee County judge.
And this is done in an effort to stifle our judiciary process and make other judges feel afraid.
Demonstrators defending Judge Hannah Dugan, arrested Friday by the FBI, accused of obstructing federal agents who were trying to detain an undocumented immigrant, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, inside her courthouse last week. According to court documents, the 31-year-old had a deportation order and was facing domestic abuse charges, to which he pleaded not guilty. The FBI says Judge Dugan instructed Flores Ruiz to leave through a, quote, back door of the courtroom. Speaking in Spanish, the alleged victims of Flores Ruiz who lived with him told us they were treated at the hospital after they allege he attacked them in a fight over loud music. The former housemates in court to testify against Flores Ruiz said they witnessed the judge telling him to leave the courtroom. Fearing retaliation, they didn't want to show their faces. In a statement, Judge Dugan's lawyer said she has, quote, committed herself to the rule of law and principles of due process for her entire career, adding she, quote, looks forward to being exonerated. Her arrest comes just a day after a former judge in New Mexico and his wife were arrested by federal agents, accused of harboring someone with alleged ties to a Venezuelan gang. No justice! No peace! Back at the FBI field office in Wisconsin tonight, demonstrators demanding answers and standing with the judge who now has her own case to defend.
And Adrian, we're also hearing about a deportation case in which a 2-year-old U.S. citizen was deported to Honduras.
Yes, Jose, the girl's mother, who is not a U.S. citizen, was deported. And an assistant DHS assistant secretary tells us it was the girl's mother who made the decision to take her daughter with her. But a federal judge has ordered a hearing for next month to learn more about this case. Jose?
Adrian brought us in St. Francis, Wisconsin. Thank you. More than a dozen people were killed and hundreds more are hurt in a massive explosion at a shipping port in Iran. And it comes on the same day as key talks about the country's nuclear program are underway. Richard Engel is the only American television journalist in Iran and has the latest.
The explosion at Iran's main port could be felt up to 30 miles away, according to witnesses. Iran's customs authority said hazardous chemicals exploded, but didn't identify the type. A crisis management official in the region in southern Iran said the blast originated in containers. The timing is raising questions. This week, Iran's foreign minister warned Israel might try to sabotage negotiations with the U.S. to limit Iran's nuclear program in exchange for lifting sanctions. According to Israeli media, Israeli officials denied any responsibility in the port fire. In Iran, we found widespread support for a new diplomatic deal with the U.S. Iranians tell us they're tired of sanctions and want to travel, trade, and improve ties with the United States.
I've been to this country a few times, but never have I seen people openly speaking from the heart in this way. What happened? What changed?
You reach to a point that you're fed up. You don't want to experience more of that thing, that sanction, that misery, that thing that every day you have to wake up to a bad news. Someday you say, oh, enough is enough. Let's see what happens if things were different.
Iran's foreign minister today said he remains cautiously optimistic about the nuclear talks with the U.S., which are scheduled to resume next week. A senior White House official told NBC News the negotiations were both positive and productive. Jose?
Richard Engel in Tehran, thank you. Coming up, we're tracking severe weather tonight, including this hailstorm that pounded parts of Oklahoma. The area is under threat just ahead. Plus, this teenager's mission to fight back against deep fakes and the bill that she inspired that could soon become law. We are tracking a severe weather threat in parts of the South and Midwest tonight. Heavy rain, hail, and damaging winds slamming parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Ryan Chandler's following it all.
A massive storm system bearing down on Texas, spurring tornadoes and dust clouds across the panhandle. Hail beating on cars and blocking visibility on the roads.
Oh my gosh.
Tonight, Texas and Oklahoma recovering from a string of dangerous storms.
Another tornado, guys.
Neighborhoods outside of Amarillo littered with debris after 2 tornadoes touched down. This house in Canyon, Texas, the roof ripped straight off. Downed trees, fences destroyed. Near Oklahoma City, lightning sparking several house fires.
I heard this ridiculously loud boom. The mirror exploded. I mean, it was a miracle that I did not get cut up. I could feel the heat coming out of it.
In Lawton, Oklahoma, fire crews rescuing children in boats on flooded roads and parking lots.
No.
People also helping their pets trek through feet of water. Hail pelting backyards. 2 million under weather alerts. As Texas and Oklahoma clean up, the threat moves north tomorrow as these late season storms continue across the region. Ryan Chandler, NBC News.
We're back in a moment with a teen behind the bipartisan push to criminalize explicit deepfakes. How her real-life nightmare inspired a bill that could soon become law. One teen is on a mission to ban explicit deepfakes online, images created using artificial intelligence. And in some cases, it's not against the law. Melanie Zanona has more on the new push to crack down.
For Texas teen Elliston Berry, her freshman year of high school quickly turned into a nightmare.
I was nervous to even walk through the hallways.
Berry woke up one morning to a gut-wrenching discovery. A nude photo of her circulating on the internet. But the image was completely fake.
I was embarrassed to tell my mom. I didn't want my mom or my stepdad to think that I would ever send these.
One of Berry's male classmates used an artificial intelligence app to digitally alter a photo of her, then shared it on Snapchat. Berry was just 14 years old at the time.
I was completely shocked. The image was it looked completely real.
But Berry and her mom found glaring holes in the law. The images were eventually removed from social media, and the alleged perpetrator, also a minor, received probation, according to Berry's mother.
It wasn't considered child pornography, although it completely is.
Deepfake pornography is a growing problem as AI technology has gotten more advanced. 15% of high school students say they are aware of sexually explicit deepfake images of someone they know. Now, thanks to Berry, there's a bipartisan push to pass the Take It Down Act to criminalize the publication of non-consensual, sexually explicit images, including those generated by AI, and require platforms to remove the images within 48 hours. First Lady Melania Trump brought Berry as her guest to the State of the Union this year. Now the bill is on the fast track to passage, and Berry says she's glad to see Congress taking action.
The last thing I wanted to do was talk about it, but it's been super healing. I'm able to have these opportunities to speak about this and to protect so many people and to be that voice.
And the Take It Down Act is expected to pass the House on Monday, and then it will head to President Trump's desk for signature. And Elliston, who just turned 16 this week, told me that would be the best birthday present that she could ask for. Jose.
Melanie Zona on Capitol Hill, thank you. When we come back, there's good news tonight. A surprise proposal that shocked this kindergarten teacher and the ecstatic reaction from her students. There's good news tonight. So often the good news doesn't get as much attention as the bad. So every Saturday we highlight the many people who spread joy and love. And these are just some of those stories this week.
Hello. How's this for a surprise? That's Mario and Diana de los Santos, a retired couple in Houston giving out Easter baskets in their neighborhood.
What do you say, guys? Thank you.
For mom Lily Rodriguez and her kids, it meant the world.
I think it's a great example, right? Humans that are kind and that are giving.
They were so moved, they wanted to do it too. Later that week, when her kids Emma and Ethan got off the bus, it was go time.
Hi! We have Easter baskets for you guys. We just wanted to say thank you.
Oh my gosh, we were doing it for them.
No, but we wanted to do it for you guys too. Oh, sorry. What do you say?
Thank you. Oh, thank you guys. That is so sweet. Now I'm getting emotional.
Kindness is universal, and I think that's what spoke to people.
Talk about an unlikely friendship. That's 9-year-old Noah Kerrigan with his buddy, who happens to be his garbage truck driver. Noah loves trucks, so for the last 4 years, he'd run outside to say hi every week. His mom, Catherine, watched their friendship grow.
Just seeing this part of his childhood and this gentleman acknowledging him and taking the time for him was the most heartwarming.
But with a new company taking over the route, Noah gave him a special parting gift.
Here we go.
Noah's note says it all. Thanks for making Garbage Day extra fun.
He makes me feel awesome. Like whenever I see him, I'm working hard. She puts a smile on my face.
In Ohio, an unbreakable bond. On the right, that's Lisa Shine. 3 years ago, she lost her daughter Madeline in an ATV accident. But in their darkest time, her family gave the gift of life, donating organs to 4 people, including 6-year-old Mireya Moody. And after a 5K honoring her daughter, Lisa finally heard Madeline's beating heart in Mireya.
Hearing her live on through Mireya was just an amazing experience. In a perfect world, both of our girls would be here, but it was very heartwarming.
Today's the day. I'm going to ask Julie to marry me.
And that's Josh Payne driving to one of the biggest moments of his life. After 3 years of dating, he wanted to take the next step with the love of his life, kindergarten teacher Julie Vargas. And where else to do that than her classroom with her students? It was Julie and Josh's big day, but it wasn't all about them. She was getting a ring and didn't want to leave the kids out, even if theirs were a little different.
It was just precious because he knows how much I love my job and how much my students mean to me.
Miss Vargas is getting married!
I'll never forget that moment.
A lot of people involved, so it's going to be fun to reminisce.
That's NBC Nightly News for this Saturday. Hallie Jackson will be here tomorrow night. I'm Jose Diaz-Balart. Thank you for the privilege of your time, and good night.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.